Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. We are on the test server, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at the new champions that have been added to the game. Check out my other videos as well. There will be more coming out today too, where we look at some of the new features, including epic empowerment. It is here. We can now empower epic champions. It is actually coming in this patch. We're going to be doing a whole separate video on that, though. This one is just the new champs. So let's take a little look. The first one I actually want to look at is the new mythical, who's actually coming from the Skinwalkers faction, which I think is pretty interesting. So here we go. Let's take a look at him. This is, oh, if it wants to load. There we go. Gallas Bloodcrest. And as you can see, he is an absolute, he's just a massive cock. Is a giant cock. That's what we've got coming. Just bigger than I expected. Imagine having that cock in your account. That'd be great. Imagine pulling that cock. Now that would be something. Can't help it, but he's actually cool. So let's say Rooster. Let's go with Rooster. A defense-based mythical. I don't know if this is new, by the way. I can't remember, but maybe. Like where it shows you their two different forms, like attack for Mezimel, defense for Gallas. I don't know, maybe. But here he is. There's been a lot of speculation, of course, with Amius. Not Amius, with Carnage. How do we empower Carnage? Presumably with another mythical? Because you can't get multiple copies of Carnage. So presumably there'll be another Demon Spawn mythical that you can empower Carnage with. But that's not happened. We've actually gone to Skinwalkers. We, of course, have two Shadowkin, but people sort of figured, well, Mikage, here you can see the attack /HP. Mikage is, a login one's a bit different. But yeah, so we'll probably get a Demon Spawn for Carnage at some point, but not yet. This guy, first of all, defense-based in both of his forms. You can see that he's pretty much a tanky support in Form 1. And yeah, let's flip him over to Form 2, where he turns into a damage dealer. Crit damage goes way up. And now he's a big electro cock, and he's thrown away his weapon. He's like is it a cockatrice? Is a cockatrice like a chicken dragon? I don't know. But yeah, he's like electro. He actually looks really cool. This guy looks badass. So he's a defense-based damage dealer. Gallas Bloodcrest. Let's take a look at his moves. Wing Clip A1, decrease speed. It just places it, so straight up decrease speed A1 for 2 turns. When counterattacking, the damage inflicted by this skill is based on this champion's defense and the enemy's max HP. I am very curious what the multipliers are going to be. It's just a single hit, but he's got an enemy max HP A1. I think the only other champion in the game that has that is Acrisia, so that could be very good with ally attack teams. Maybe even counterattack. But ally attack, that's something that I am really trying to push in Hydra at the moment. I think ally attack champions, Podrick, Mikage, Cardial, etc. are so strong for that. So there we go. Cutting Jibe, his A2 is a 3 turn. AoE attack, provoke for 1 turn. If the target's a boss, it's provoke for 2 turns. Ooh, also puts unkillable on this champion for 1 turn. And a counterattack on him for 2 turns. That's really interesting. His A3 fully restores all allies destroyed max HP. 4 turn goes to a 3 turn cooldown. Also puts revive on death and increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. Now, I actually want to see his passive, then we'll talk about this. Rule the Roost. Reflects 50% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker. If the attacker is a boss, reflects 100% of the damage this champion receives, and also heals this champion by 50% of the damage received. That's really interesting. What is this guy designed for? So for Hydra, right? He's going to reflect some damage back, 100% of the damage back. That's not a ton. It will heal him by a bit, but you don't necessarily take that much damage in Hydra. Restoring your destroyed max HP is great for Hydra. Revive on death is not super needed, but it's a nice bonus. It is a nice bonus. It's an extra buff for champions like Taris, that scale on buffs, or Turvold as well. Increased defense is nice. He's got AoE 2-turn provoke for Hydra. That's great. Unkillable counterattack. He could mischief tank. He's got 50 base resistance. He could mischief tank, be constantly counterattacking. Basically should keep the cleansing head provoked permanently just by himself. He'll put out decent damage with an enemy max HP A1 counterattack that he's going to be popping off all the time as well. Pretty interesting. Boosts his own damage, increased defense. That's intriguing. That's intriguing. I say for other bosses, so restoring destroyed max HP, revive on death. That's really good for Sand Devil. And I guess the A1 is nice as well. For Iron Twins, it doesn't destroy your max HP, but increased defense, revive on death is nice. This is not too... You can't provoke him, but you can put decreased speed on the Iron Twins, and the enemy max HP would be good. Iron Twins does do quite a bit of damage for you, so he'd be able to solo it pretty well and do some nice damage back. That's pretty interesting. That's interesting. 35% defense on all battles aura. An interesting A1. Maybe, I don't know, it's hard to judge how powerful it is without putting it into practice. Let's look at his form too, which again, with the 63% crit damage, looks to be damaged either form. Fulminous Screech attacks one enemy, puts an extra hit on all enemies under decreased defense. That's going to be a big damage move for Hydra, right? This extra hit, this is going to be a single target hit, right? Because basically it will check every enemy single target and be like, okay, are they, do they have decreased defense? Okay, hit them. What about the next one? Do they have decreased defense? Okay, hit them. It's not an AoE because they don't all necessarily have decreased defense. It checks them one by one. So that should actually do a lot of damage for Hydra. And again, with ally attack or counterattack should be very powerful. Probably you wouldn't bring him with a counterattack. I don't know. I won't say that until I've tested him. But ally attack, that could be really powerful. Sundered Sky, 3-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies before attacking decreased defense for 2 turns. Damage increases by 10% for each enemy under decreased defense. And steals 20% turn meter from each enemy. So this is obviously a Cursed City dream. Lots of damage, decreased defense, turn meter steal. He's going to need accuracy. Obviously for this, he doesn't need accuracy for his Form 1. For Arena, it seems a bit weaker because you got to get past Polymorph. You got to have enough accuracy. The damage is going to be dependent on decreased defense. That could be a bit awkward. But still, this could smack. So he reminds me actually a little bit of Ragash. And Ragash is sort of better than you expect. So I'm curious about this. Stealing the turn meter is nice. This is going to be a good Hydra move. He can be your decreased defense champ. But that being said, it's quite awkward. Remember, you can't use both of his forms at once. So he probably can't be your only decreased defense champ. Because for Hydra, you might want him provoking. And doing he could be your decreased speed provoke champ and doing enemy max HP. I don't know, it's a bit tricky to fit him in to a Hydra because you got to flip between the forms. It takes time to do that. Sonic Torture is A3, 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, damage increases by 15% for each buff on each target, and decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns. That's a really good arena move right there. The more buffs they have, the more damage he does. That potentially hits really hard. And then it decreases their buffs by 2 turns as well. That's great. You can potentially remove Stone Skin. You can basically, it's the same chance to remove Stone Skin as anything else, any other buff strip. It's good against Polymorph, is what I mean to say. It's the same for Stone Skin as any buff strip, but for Polymorph, you don't trigger Polymorph by decreasing buff duration. So he can potentially buff strip your enemy. That's pretty cool. What's his passive? Unholy Experiment. Enemies under decreased defense cannot put stun, sleep, fear, true fear, provoke, freeze, or petrification. So everything, I think that's everything except Polymorph. So he's immune to pretty much all the hard crowd control if they're under decreased defense. Nice for Hydra. He'd be immune to true fear, which is cool, and provoke, which is kind of nice. That's cool. Resets the cooldown of Sundered Sky if an enemy under decreased defense is killed by that skill. So this is before attacking puts oh wow. So before attacking puts decreased defense, steals turn meter. If he kills somebody, it resets it. Okay, that is potentially very powerful. Also resets the cooldown of Sonic Torture if an enemy under decreased defense is killed by that skill. So this is the buff strippy one. So he's going to be very powerful for wave-based content. That's interesting to say the least. That is interesting. Okay, funky champ. What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about the giant cock? Yay or nay to giant cocks? Let me know. Let's go right to the other ones then. So for Sacred Order, Vault Keeper Wixwell, here he is in game. Actually looking cool. He's got that's a really sick animation on the chest. That's cool. On his staff. Ooh, wow. He looks great. The design, the animations are actually top tier. We can see his base stats here. We'll do a full breakdown of him. But again, very like the Galarius or whatever he's called, Form 1. He's a sort of defensive base support. So we'll take a full look at him, but he's looking good, honestly, visually. Great, that's Sacred Order. Barbarians, we have, a new faction unity champion, Dune Lord Gregor, who looks a bit funky. They like making the barbarians fat, which seems a bit weird. I don't know. Like, the obesity epidemic really comes from highly developed countries. It's a bit strange that it's coming from here, but barbarians? I don't know about that. That's a bit strange, but okay. Let's take a look. Desert Axe, 50% chance to provoke. All right, not amazing. Fine. Earth Cleave, 4 goes to a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies. Decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn, increase ally buffs by 1 turn, puts a shield on all allies equal to 20% of his max HP. Now, he's a defense scaling champion for damage, so he's probably going to have terrible damage. You're going to be building his health high. You know, the buff extension and buff slight decrease duration, that's a nice little move with the shield. Okay, that seems fine. Let's see, his aura, 25% defense in all battles and 40 accuracy for barbarians, right? Bestial Yell, 6 goes to a 4-turn cooldown, puts increase attack, increase accuracy on all allies for 2 turns. With 1 faction ally, decrease the cooldown of all ally skills, except this champ by 1 turn. That's actually pretty nice. That's good. 2 faction allies, it's a 20% turn meter fill. 3 faction allies activates an instant turn effect on the ally with the highest crit damage, except this champion. Ooh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, that is interesting. The faction effects are really good. It's just an increase attack, increase accuracy on a 4-turn. Pretty underwhelming. But decreasing everyone's skills by 1 turn is small, but it's nice, right? We've seen that with Emic. Instant turn is pretty cool, and the 20% turn meter fills a nice bonus. All right, interesting. And then Desert Monolith. When attacked, has a 20% chance of putting provoke debuff on the attacker once per hit. So if they hit you with a multi-hit, you've got lots of 20% chances. Feels a bit weak. You might be forced to run this guy. Yeah, he's got an AoE attack and an A1 provoke. You might be forced to run him in like a, I don't know, provoke set or freeze set or something with the mastery that increases your chance, because he's got pretty low chances to provoke. You'd probably want to boost those with the mastery. I don't know. One faction ally for this. Allies do 25% more damage to enemies under stun, sleep, fear, true fear, provoke, freeze, or petrification. There are multiple champs. Okay. I mean, it seems solid. Again, not useful for bosses. Not that easy to use it in PvE. Like for arena, it's a bit tricky. Like, I guess Carl can freeze, but Armans can stun. So he'd be very strong with Armans. There's no doubt about that. He could be resetting Armans. That's kind of busted. Actually, just keep resetting Armans and boosting Armans. Oh god. Okay, so that's somewhat useful. 2 faction allies. Allies ignore 50% resistance when applying stun, sleep, fear, true fear, provoke, freeze, petrification. Again, for Armans, that's nice. For Yakarl, that's really good with the freeze. 3 faction allies. When counterattacking, instant effects and debuffs placed by an ally's... when counterattacking, instant effects and debuffs placed by ally skills cannot be resisted or blocked. That's... is this the first time we've had them clarify instant effects? So that would be... Well, Valkyrie with the counterattack in his faction, her A1 decreases turn meter. It's not a debuff, it's an instant effect. That's cool. I don't know if they've ever clarified that before. Huh. Who is this useful for? So again, Yakarl can freeze on his A1. Who else would be lacking accuracy that this would be really good? I mean, Armans, again, you could be increasing their skill cooldowns. It has to be with counterattack, though. That's the challenging thing. When counterattacking, which is very niche, he doesn't bring counterattack himself. Very niche, so he really wants to be with Valkyrie. Yeah, I don't know. What do we think about Gregor? I mean, in the faction, Farrakhan the Fat is a good champion to run. Yakarl is good. Obviously, Tuhanarak. The Archer's in there. Turvo's decent. You've got Valkyrie, of course. Armans. Seems... My initial impression is a little bit underwhelmed by him, honestly. Yeah, I feel a little bit underwhelmed. Like, he does not seem very, very strong for Arena. Doesn't seem great for Arena at all. He seems more wave-based sort of control. I don't know. This guy, he feels a little bit underwhelming. My initial impression, I'm not that excited. Let me know what you guys think about that. For the Lizard Man, we have... Wait, what do we have new in the Lizard Man? Am I missing? Is it a rare? Oh, we've got a rare. Okay. Trix. Trix the Restless. Ooh. Looks quite cool, actually. Simple, but cool. I like it. All right, so this guy, defense-based champion, fairly standard low defense for defense-based champ, I'd say. Pinpoint thrust, attacks one enemy, 25% small accuracy buff on himself for 2 turns. All right, sure. Spur Claw, 4-turn cooldown AoE with a chance to provoke, goes to 75%. And then Protect the Crowned, 5 goes to a 3-turn cooldown, puts small version of Strengthen on everybody for 2 turns, and counterattack on himself for 2 turns. He could be a budget Hydra. He could be a budget Hydra Mischief tank for you. Keeps counterattack on himself. If you've got a Blood Shield accessory, he's going to have a little shield. So be very consistent. He gives himself increased accuracy at those counterattacks. So he'll have a lot of buffs. He can Mischief tank very easily, actually. Provides you a small strengthen to keep your team alive. And he's got a 4-turn cooldown, kind of poor provoke. He's not very good. It's really not super worthwhile. He's void. But he'd be an okay budget thing for that if you're really stuck. It's like a bit of survivability, tiny supplemental provoke. And yeah, that's kind of it. He'll be okay for some wave-based stuff, but again, not particularly good. He could be very strong as well in like a stun set with like frostbite set, and again that mastery that increases your chance to like land crowd control. He could be quite good, you know, counterattacking and that, and getting hit with provoke, and he can freeze the enemy. He seems okay, but not too special. He's just a rare. Knight's Revenant then. Ooh. Giath the Truth Shield. Oh, she looks cool. Okay. That champion looks freaking badass. I love it. That's my jam right there. I love it. So defense-based champion, more of a supportive looking champ from the looks of it. Got 25% defense in all battles. All right. Revelation Spear. Attack one enemy. Puts an extra hit on enemies under decreased crit rate or crit damage debuffs placed by this champion. So I guess that's what she's going to do with her other moves. Extra hit is always a normal hit and will ignore 50% of each target's defense. Also puts increased defense on this champion for 2 turns. That's weird. Okay. So she'll self-buff herself, and then she'll do a normal hit, so you don't need to build crit on her. But stacking ignore defense would actually be really strong. That's so bizarre. Okay, what else does she do? Truth Beheld. 5 goes to a 3-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies. Before attacking, increase the duration of ally buffs. Damage inflicted by this skill increases by 5% for each buff had its duration increased. That's just a nuke move. That does want crit and crit damage. Doesn't have a ton of crit damage baseline, mind you. All right. Sensor Barrier. Puts reflect damage on all allies for 2 turns. It's a 5 goes to 3-turn cooldown. Ally protection on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Also puts strengthen and increase resist on this champion for 2 turns. Wait, how does she do the crit? Right. Maw of Deterrence. Whenever an ally under reflect damage is attacked, puts decreased crit rate 30% and 30% decreased crit damage on the attacker for 2 turns that cannot be resisted. Ooh. She's a weird one, guys. She's a weird one. Okay. So you go in. You probably... She is a weird one. So she's going to protect your team with reflect damage, ally protect. So ally protection, reflect damage is not super useful, but that reflect damage is going to be putting out decreased crit rate, crit damage. That's intriguing. 30% decreased crit rate basically stops most enemies, nearly all of them, except for Phantom Shogun, maybe. But it stops every other PvE enemy in the game. Every boss, everything except Shogun, I believe, from critting anybody, right? Because every other enemy in PvE has a 15% chance to crit. That goes up to a 30% chance to crit if they're strong affinity. This will stop them critting ever. The decreased crit damage is not very important, mind you. That'd be more for Arena, I would say. She could Mischief Tank with Strength and Increased Resist. I guess that will keep her alive. She could Mischief Tank well with that. So she does an extra hit on enemies under decrease. So strange. What a strange champion. So she's going to be fairly tanky with strength and increased resist and increased defense at fairly minimal effort, protecting your team, decrease their crit rate. She's bizarre. Increase ally buffs as well. She's a weird champion. This is a weird champion. What do we think of this? Where would you use her? Huh. I feel like this skill doesn't fit in quite as well. The fact that you want to, I would say, you really want to build damage on her for this. This could hit really hard as well. If your team has a lot of buffs, and I mean, she's putting out a lot of buffs as well, this could hit pretty hard. So building her with damage would be good. But then, again, building the crit stats doesn't really help with this because she can't crit. It's always normal. That's funky. She's funky. Okay, I mean, you probably try get her into like lethal or something like that. I don't know, lethal and some stone skin and strange. Interesting champ. That's one that's not obvious exactly how good she is immediately. Next up then we've got dwarves. It's a void, a new void dwarf. Senna Amberheart. Looks pretty cool. Looks decent. She looks kind of like legendary Demitha, I guess. 19% speed in all battles. That's a little bit underwhelming, actually. My initial thought looking at this champ was it was underwhelming, because I did see this one already. I was curious, and yeah, she's weird. I had to think about this one. But this for a void feels a bit bad. That's like a solid aura for, let's say, Duchess or something, a non-void. For a void, you'd kind of want it to be a bit better. Like Marishka is like 24%, right? So, bit of a bummer. Amber Thrust, A1. 50 goes to 60% chance to instantly activate continuous heal on every ally. For A2, Touch of Gold, increase speed and 2 continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns with a 20% turn meter fill on a 3 turn. Edge of Death, this move is weird. 6 goes to a 4 turn cooldown, revives all dead allies with 50% HP turn meter, then teams up with all allies revived by the skill to attack the enemy with the lowest HP. Allies joining the attack will use their default skills. So strange. Then Healing Glow. I think this is the thing that makes her kit maybe not terrible. Whenever a continuous heal buff activates on any ally, fills the turn meters of all allies by 5%. At the end of her turn, increase the duration of a continuous heal buff on a random ally by 1 turn. So the second part's fairly weak. It'll just make it a bit more consistent. This seems good, but she is weird. So this move is bizarre. It's a team revive, and then you ally attack with the people who died. Like, when is that useful? That's so unbelievably niche. Like, Sand Devil is just about the only place I can think of where you actually would get killed. But then again, the boss will be asleep, and you probably don't want to use their A1s. You want to, use their active moves to put debuffs and stuff on the boss while he's asleep. So this is very strange. It's a very strange revive. Seems honestly pretty bad. Now, if this was a full team revive and a full team ally attack, it'd be insane. But the fact that she could probably I assume, only cast this when people are dead, and it only ally attacks with the people who are dead, that's a bummer. This move could have been insane, but right now seems honestly terrible. Then apart from that, she's just giving you increased speed, 2 heal buffs and some turn meter, and then activating the continuous heals. It's pretty underwhelming, but what I think is stronger than it seems is this turn meter boost. So think about Hydra. You're putting out 2 continuous heals on everyone in your team. So for 2 turns as well. So whenever anybody takes a turn, they're obviously getting healed a ton, but they will also, 2 continuous heals will activate whenever anyone takes a turn, which will fill the turn meter of your entire team by 10%. So, in Hydra, you've got 6 teammates, you put out 2 continuous heals on everyone. Every time they take a turn, 6. So, with 6 teammates, boosting you're going to get 60% turn meter times 2 because it lasts for 2 turns. So 120% turn meter from the continuous heals from this move on 6 teammates activating. Then she's also going to extend them a little bit for extra benefit. And whenever she A1s, again with 6 teammates, that could be a 30% turn meter boost, which is actually kind of insane. So you put her in with, let's say, someone like, I don't know, a Krisk, like someone who is extending your buffs to extend the continuous heals. She's proccing them more. Maybe she could be good. So she gives you an emergency revive for Hydra. She's going to give you a ton of healing. She can be your increased speed champion. And she's going to give you possibly more turn meter than anyone else in the game. Maybe. So we'll have to test it out and see. Like, for instance, If the 2 continuous heals, if she can only proc, like let's say your ally takes a turn with 2 continuous heals, if it only counts this once and only gives you 5%, it's obviously half as good. If it counts it twice for each continuous heal, 10%. That adds up. So yeah, she was a funky one. I looked at her kit and I was like, what's going on? Oh, I got Clydna, obviously, so she has been buffed now in the test server, so I've got her to test, which is pretty cool, actually. And then Glockade of the Meltwater. This guy looks sick. Awesome design. Very cool. He comes in, actually same one, Speed Aura. Okay, again, this is more appropriate for like Force Affinity. He's got high base speed, very tanky, actually. Yeah, overall. So tanky boy. Tanky support. Boreal Bolt. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit 35. Goes to 50% chance to freeze. So double 50% chance to freeze. Not good enough for fire. Well, we'll see what the rest of it does. For Fire Knight, it's not super good, but maybe better than nothing. Interesting. If the target is 50% or less HP, the debuff cannot be resisted. Okay, seems more for just general content. We'll see, though. Meltwater Cloak. Goes 5 to a 4-turn cooldown. Increase attack on all allies for 2 turns. 80 goes to 100% chance of perfect fail on everyone except him for 2 turns, and a 15% turn meter boost. Cool. There's not enough perfect fail champs in the game for Hydra. It's good to see more. Increase attack as well is nice. Lifestream, 7 goes to a 4-turn cooldown. Revives all dead allies. Oh, wow. 40% HP, 25% turn meter. That's a pretty weak revive. Also puts increased accuracy and increased defense on all allies for 3 turns. These buffs would be placed even if no allies were revived. If no allies were revived, gives them an extra turn. Okay, this actually seems like a pretty good... He seems like a Hydra champ to me. Or like a boss champ. So increase accuracy defense on everyone for 3 turns and an extra turn. Like, it's a better move, honestly, if no one's dead. If people do die, somehow, you just fully revive your team, although they come back pretty darn weak. But he could potentially go increase accuracy defense, extra turn, increase attack perfect fail turn meter boost. That's a pretty nice combo. Thaw Might. Allies under perfect fail placed by this champion do 10% more damage. Sick. Allies under perfect fail do 10% more damage to enemies under perfect fail. That's very niche, that effect, but just look, 10% damage boost. It's really solid. He'd be great in a protection set. Really good in protection set. Because he's 1, 2, 3, 4 team-wide boosts. So you get 20% team-wide damage from protection, plus 10% from perfect fail. That's really, really good. And he'd be very good as well with a buff extender on your team. His A1's not great. Seems like a solid Hydra champion, right, to throw in. Yeah, increase act defense, increase attack perfect fail with a buff extender. They're great buffs to have for Hydra, makes it easier. Boosting both types of damage, defense and attack damage. Perfect fail is great, and he makes it do more damage. Increase accuracy is nice. His A1 useless for Hydra, but solid passive. The speed boost is nice. Yeah, okay. Seems like a solid champion. And, oh, we got one more. The Epic. The Epic, who's part of the fusion, of course. Arwid Quivergrass. Let's take a look. 30% attack in faction crypts. Okay, sure. Attacks one enemy. 50% chance to steal a random buff. Solid for faction crypts. Quivergrass Vortex. 3-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies. Before attacking, removes all debuffs from this champion. 75 goes to 100% chance to remove a random buff from all enemies. Okay. Not amazing, solid-ish. Axe Leap 5 goes to 4-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy. Damage increases by 30% if this champion has no active debuffs. Also ignores unkillable buffs if this champion is... So she seems like, I am here to counter Maneater. I am here to kill Maneater. I can steal his unkillable. I can remove unkillable that Maneater places. I can ignore unkillable. I am here to deal with Maneater and like faction wars and Curse City, that sort of thing. Rippling Grass. The champion's accuracy is increased by 50 if they have no active debuffs. Okay, so you build them for damage. They're going to be a decent damage champion. They cleanse themselves, which is nice. And again, they boost their accuracy a bit with their passive. You don't have to build much accuracy. And they can steal buffs and strip buffs and ignore unkillable. Nothing too special, but solid. Yeah, seems like just a decent faction war champion. I'm guessing that, I think this is a traditional fusion. I do not think you want extra copies of this epic. It's just you pull them eventually and you're like, okay, I'll build them up at some point for stuff. But unless they've got crazy multipliers, seems fairly average for an epic, but nice to have for faction crypts. And that's probably about it for her. So yeah, seems like a fairly low mate. So I guess I don't think you need to hold on to any. Like Trix, he's the fusion rare. And if she's the fusion epic, I don't think you need extra. It's just you get them for Vaultkeeper Wixwell, and that's about it. If you're super early game, grab a copy of each one. I guess, a couple of copies of her and you could empower her. Might be okay as well. Or just build up your faction crypts. But there you go. They're the new champions. Let me know what you think. Who is your favorite? I have to say, I'm intrigued by Giath. Maybe she's terrible, but maybe she's good. She's very interesting anyway. And then I do like this guy because the meme potential is just too good. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time. Goodbye.